That night when Orion Pay made me get out of the car in a heavy rainstorm to reflect on my mistakes, all because he was standing up for my father's illegitimate daughter, Lyra Jiang, after nearly being violated, I suddenly stopped liking him. I didn't reflect as Orion Pay had demanded. Instead, from then on, I stayed away from Orion Pay and devoted myself entirely to my studies. Orion Pay doesn't know I've already given up on him. He acts like an aloof emperor, convinced I can't live without him. He's been waiting for me to grovel and apologize first. He waited and waited, until the college entrance exams ended, until scores were checked and applications submitted. I never once took the initiative to send him a message. Later, Orion Pay, upon learning the truth, couldn't hold back any longer and finally sent me a message first. What appeared on the screen was a red exclamation mark, and without delay, he rushed to my home to find me. Only then did he realize I had already sold the house, enrolled in a different university from his, and left the city to embrace a beautiful life without him. Apologize to Lyra or get out of the car. Orion Pay looked at me with an indifferent expression, his tone harsh as if scolding something filthy. Watching Lyra Jiang, who was being protected by Orion Pay, flash a look of triumph in her eyes, my tears welled up as I still tried to defend myself. I didn't cut her dress, really, I didn't. It wasn't me, sister. I know you hate me because of what happened between my mom and dad, and you deliberately humiliate me, but I'm innocent. Shut up. What right does the daughter of a mistress have to claim innocence? And I'm not your sister. Don't call me sister, it disgusts me. Tears rolled down Lyra Jiang's eyes as she sobbed uncontrollably, a pitiful sight to behold. A look of heartache flashed across Orion Pay's face, but his gaze towards me was filled with contempt. As if looking at trash, fierce and unrelenting. Myra Shah, I'm telling you for the last time, apologize to Lyra immediately. I can let go of the fact that you ruined her dress and humiliated her, but if you don't, I straightened my neck and retorted, why should I apologize when I did nothing wrong? After I refused Orion Pay's demand for the second time, his patience finally ran out. He ordered the driver to stop the car and shoved me out. I fell to the ground, utterly disgraced. Through the misty rain, I saw Orion Pay's cold lips moving as he spoke. Myra Shah, I've spoiled you too much, which is why you don't know your limits. Now I'm giving you one more chance. Apologize to Lyra, and I'll let it slide. I did nothing wrong, her issues have nothing to do with me. The car door slammed shut as Orion Pay's muffled voice came through. You must reflect on what happened today. When you've figured it out, come find Lyra to apologize and admit your mistake. Only then will I forgive you. Watching the car door close, I panicked and scrambled to get up and stop them. Orion Pay, this place is so remote, it's hard to get a taxi. You can't just abandon me here. Please, then apologize properly. I won't drive. With Orion Pay's cold command, the driver stepped on the accelerator. Unable to let go in time, I was dragged by the car and fell to the ground once again. The rain poured down in torrents, drenching me completely. Watching the increasingly distant and blurred taillights of the car, the rapid streams rolling down my face could no longer be distinguished as raindrops or tears. I never imagined that one day, Orion Pay, who once shielded me and vowed to protect and cherish me for a lifetime, would abandon me. Even less did I expect that Orion Pay would leave me to seek justice for Lyra Jiang, the daughter of my father's mistress. Orion Pay and I were neighbors, and we grew up together as childhood sweethearts. My mom and Aunt Pay are best friends, and they made a promise when they were both pregnant, if they had daughters, they would be sisters, if sons, brothers, and if one was a boy and the other a girl, they would arrange a childhood betrothal. So Orion Pay and I were betrothed from birth by our moms and Aunt Pay. Aunt Pay gave my mom a priceless bracelet as a token, and my mom gave Aunt Pay an expensive jade pendant in return. Orion Pay and I have been playmates since infancy, brought together by our mothers, and from kindergarten through elementary, middle, and even high school, we were always in the same class. We were inseparable all along, and my mom and Aunt Pay had agreed that we would get engaged after graduating from high school and getting into college. Unfortunately, everything changed during my second year of high school. My mom passed away unexpectedly in a car accident, and I was utterly devastated, grieving for a long time. Just as I was still struggling to emerge from the grief of losing my mother, my father brought home a strange woman and a girl about my age. He told me to call that woman Aunt Jiang and to call the girl Lyra Jiang my sister. I couldn't accept that my father had found someone new so soon after my mother's departure, not to mention that his new lover's daughter looks so much like my dad, given that Lyra Jiang is almost the same age as me. It goes without saying that my dad was cheating while my mom was still alive. I hate my dad to death, and I also despise that mistress and her daughter. Orion Pei initially stood with me in shared resentment, but at some point, I noticed he actually started feeling sorry for Lyra Jiang. Life hasn't been easy for Lyra Jiang, her mistress mother, and my father since my mom passed away. To be honest, all of this is because my mother took precautions. My mother was the epitome of a beautiful, wealthy, and virtuous woman, while my father was a phoenix man, a man from a humble background who marries into wealth. Perhaps she knew about the inherent flaws that phoenix men tend to have deep down. Although my mother married my father, she actually kept a guard up against him. My father thought that after my mother's death, he could rightfully inherit her property and live a good life with his mistress and her daughter. Little did he know, my mother had notarized all her assets to be left to me, her only daughter. He couldn't touch a single penny of her property. So on the third day after my dad moved back home with his mistress and her daughter, my mom's lawyer friend showed up with the paperwork. I still vividly remember the shock on my dad's face and that of his mistress and her daughter. The lawyer gave my dad only one option. Since he was already remarried with a wife and daughter, he had to move out of my mom's property. Just like that. My dad and his mistress's family were kicked out. The matter should have ended there, but my father actually brought his illegitimate daughter, Lyra Jiang, to our school. I had always ignored Lyra Jiang, this illegitimate child. I knew the fault wasn't hers, all the blame lay with my shameless biological father and her shameless mother. I never expected Lyra Jiang would take the initiative to frame me. Lyra Jiang's first attempt to frame me was deliberately leaking our relationship, making everyone aware of her status as the illegitimate daughter of a mistress. At this age, classmates have a strong sense of justice. After learning that Lyra Jiang was the illegitimate child of a mistress, they all felt particularly disgusted by her. Lyra Jiang was isolated, with no one in the class willing to befriend her. Every day, Lyra Jiang came to school wearing faded, washed-out clothes. She eats the cheapest meals in the cafeteria. I don't know why Lyra Jiang would do this. As far as I know, my dad has secretly saved quite a bit of money. Just getting Lyra Jiang into the elite school I attend would cost hundreds of thousands in admission fees alone. Not to mention, even though my dad was kicked out of my mom's villa, he's still a company executive with a substantial annual salary. Lyra Jiang's self-exposure as the daughter of a mistress while pretending to be poor and playing the victim is truly baffling, but I didn't pay much attention to it. Later on, Lyra Jiang was locked in a restroom and bullied. I heard about the bullying incident involving Lyra Jiang. The perpetrators were a few spoiled rich girls at school who had no interest in studying. They bullied Lyra Jiang not because she was the daughter of a mistress, but because she had provoked them. To be fair, Lyra Jiang does have some charm. She appears fragile and helpless, skilled at putting on a facade, and wherever she goes, she exudes an air that invites affection. Then one day, as luck would have it, she fainted right into a young man's arms, and he took her to the hospital. Unfortunately, the young man who sent Lyra Jiang to the hospital happened to be someone one of the young ladies fancied. Upon learning that the boy she liked might be involved with Lyra Jiang, the young lady couldn't swallow her pride, so she threatened to teach Lyra Jiang a lesson. Lyra Jiang was cornered in the restroom by her and her gang, slapped, forced to kneel, and even made to strip. As fate would have it, Orion Pei and his close friend happened to witness the incident. Orion Pei and his friend heard Lyra Jiang's desperate cries for help and came to her rescue. Seeing Lyra Jiang's tragic state, Orion Pei and his friend wanted to help her call the police, but Lyra Jiang refused. Shaking her head in tears, "Don't call the police, don't, and don't tell the teachers or the dean, don't tell anyone." Why? Orion Pei was puzzled, but Lyra Jiang only shook her head, crying like rain beating on pear blossoms. Finally, under Orion Pei's persistent questioning, She uttered a seemingly ambiguous statement. As long as it makes my sister feel better, she can treat me however she wants. After all, this is what my mother and I owe her. Lyra Jiang pinned the blame for the bullying on me, and Orion Pei believed Lyra Jiang's accusations against me. I had no idea I was being framed, until rumors started spreading at school that I was bullying Lyra Jiang. The situation escalated, and my close friend Qianqian heard about it and later told me. Orion Pei also warned me, Myra Shi, that's enough. Lyra Jiang is actually innocent. You should direct your anger at your dad and Lyra Jiang's mother, not take it out on someone unrelated. This baseless accusation made me laugh in frustration at the time. I denied to Orion Pei that I bullied Lyra Jiang, but Orion Pei didn't believe me. Furious, I went to find Lyra Jiang and asked her to clarify the matter. To my shock, Lyra Jiang set me up. While I was questioning her, she started slapping herself violently, then suddenly knelt before me, kowtowing like pounding garlic. Having never witnessed such a scene before, I was so terrified I couldn't speak. Then a video of Lyra Jiang violently slapping herself and kneeling before me to kowtow suddenly went viral. The video had no sound, so the conversation between Lyra Jiang and me couldn't be heard, only her terrified self slapping her own face hard and kneeling before me to beg for mercy. Lyra Jiang was ruthless to herself. She slapped her face until it swelled, even drawing blood from her mouth. After this video spread, my bullying of Lyra Jiang was confirmed. There were all sorts of comments in no time. Innocent as I was suddenly thrust into the eye of the storm. After the incident escalated, Lyra Jiang's mother dragged her bruised and battered daughter to my house to kowtow and beg for mercy. She pleaded with me to stop bullying Lyra Jiang, to spare her daughter, and to direct any grievances toward her instead. I was so furious at such an unprecedented situation that I felt dizzy, finding it impossible to defend myself no matter how hard I tried. In the end, Aunt Pei had Lyra Jiang and her mother driven away. The video posted by Lyra Jiang was also deleted by Aunt Pei's order, but the incident had already spread, and my alleged bullying of Lyra Jiang became an established fact. Apart from Aunt Pei and Qianqian, no one believed I was innocent. Even Orion Pei doesn't believe me. After that, Lyra Jiang's books would suddenly go missing, and dead mice, snakes, or cockroaches would appear on her seat. Orion Pei came to me again and again because of these things. Myra Shi, stop doing this, I'm begging you. Okay, Orion Pei didn't believe a single word of my denials or explanations. I don't know how things turned out this way. The only explanation is that Lyra Jiang and her mother are behind all this. I despise Lyra Jiang to death. I thought if I stayed far away from Lyra Jiang and avoided any interaction, nothing would happen. But I never expected Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang to grow closer and closer. At first, Orion Pei privately approached me to discuss stopping my bullying of Lyra Jiang. Later, he expressionlessly threw a dead rat onto my desk. Amid my screams, he coldly warned me, Myra Shi, if you keep this up, don't blame me for not being polite. Orion Pei took a clear stand by Lyra Jiang's side. After that, no more unwanted creatures ever appeared in Lyra Jiang's desk. Lyra Jiang's grades weren't very good, and Orion Pei would patiently tutor her. He would order delicious meals for Lyra Jiang when she was eating cheap food. He would thoughtfully give Lyra Jiang pens when hers broke. Even if the pen was one I had given him, he never hesitated to part with it. He would stop Lyra Jiang riding a shared bike at the school gate and take the initiative to send her home. Orion Pei's kindness to me was no longer unique. As his focus began to shift toward Lyra Jiang, I couldn't accept such a change. I cried and made a scene to Orion Pei, asking him to stay away from Lyra Jiang. Orion Pei initially agreed to me, but just as he started distancing himself from Lyra Jiang, she would inexplicably face bullying and harassment again. Then, the overly compassionate Orion Pei would blame all of this on me, and then he would resume his care and protection for Lyra Jiang. Having grown up with Orion Pei since childhood, I had grown accustomed to his presence by my side. I couldn't accept him abandoning me to defend another woman. I made up with Orion Pei, then grew distant again because of Lyra Jiang, and shamelessly went back to reconcile, repeating the cycle. I'm mentally exhausted and it's left me with emotional scars. I've even started fearing something might happen to Lyra Jiang, because the slightest stir from Jiang Miao Miao would make Orion Pei blame it all on me. I've even considered transferring to a school where Lyra Jiang isn't present. Just hold on a little longer, I kept convincing myself over and over, but I never expected that what I feared most would come to pass. During the school's New Year's performance, Lyra Jiang had another incident. During Lyra Jiang's performance, the strap of her dress broke in public, causing an unexpected exposure. The audience erupted in jeers, and Orion Pei was the first to rush on stage. Taking off his own clothes to cover Lyra Jiang, without any exception, I became the scapegoat for Lyra Jiang's mishap. Lyra Jiang suffered immense embarrassment this time, a young girl in the prime of her youth exposed in front of so many people. For a moment, there was all sorts of talk. There was no evidence to prove that the strap of her dress breaking had anything to do with me, but Orion Pei thought otherwise. He believed that since he had bought Lyra Jiang's expensive dress, I, out of jealousy, had secretly tampered with it to make Lyra Jiang look bad. Not only Orion Pei thinks this way, but Lyra Jiang also shares the same view. Lyra Jiang, who never dared to accuse me before, bravely stood up to point the finger at me this time. Sister, I know you hate me. You're angry that Orion bought the dress for me, and I understand how you feel. If ruining the dress can ease your anger, I'm willing to be humiliated. With just this simple statement, Orion Pei firmly stood by Lyra Jiang's side. Because Lyra Jiang was too poor to afford a dress, Orion Pei had one custom made for her. When I found out, I had a huge fight with Orion Pei. Orion Pei firmly believed that I ruined the dress out of jealousy to humiliate Lyra Jiang. He demanded that I apologize to Lyra Jiang and admit my mistake. When I refused, he pushed me out of the car despite the thunderstorm raging outside. Drenched by the heavy rain, I walked step by step into the dark night. The sound of rain and wind surrounds me. I'm so cold and scared. I walked forward while crying, having left my phone in Orion Pei's car. Without my phone and no money on me, I couldn't take a taxi and had no choice but to keep walking step by step. I hoped to meet someone who could help me. Crying as I walked, I had no idea how far I'd gone. A sound came from behind me. I turned around and saw a man in a raincoat riding a bicycle approaching from behind. I thought I'd met a savior, but little did I know I'd encountered a devil. After stopping his bike, the man grabbed me and forcefully dragged me toward the nearby greenbelt. I realized something was wrong and struggled desperately, screaming for help. There was nothing around me but the sound of rain and wind. With no one in sight, the man dragged me into the woods by the roadside. He pinned me to the ground and began tearing at my clothes. I cried, resisted, and scratched, leaving the man wounded. He then punched me viciously on the head, and I passed out. When I regained consciousness, I heard voices beside me. It's all Orion's fault. That damned bastard, how could he abandon Myra for that mistress's daughter? Thankfully, Myra was lucky. If anything had happened to her, how could I ever face her mother? It was Aunt Pei's voice, filled with self-reproach. While Uncle Pei was comforting her, Myra, good people have heaven's protection and can turn calamities into blessings. As for Orion, he probably never expected something like this to happen. So we can't entirely blame him. How can we not blame him? It was so dark and raining, how could he bear to leave Myra alone on that remote roadside? That wretched boy. I'll definitely give him a beating when I get back. I'll drag him here to kneel and apologize to Myra. We can't let this escalate, right now. Only the police and that fleeing man know about what happened to Myra. If we tell Orion, it might traumatize him, and it wouldn't be good for Myra's reputation either. My suggestion is to keep this hidden until after Orion's college entrance exams. Then tell him, so Myra is just supposed to suffer this injustice in silence. This is the best solution. Uncle Pei answered the phone and went out, while Aunt Pei held my hand silently crying, her tears falling on my face. Cold and wet, I opened my eyes. Auntie, Myra, good child. Aunt Pei hugged me. Don't be afraid, Auntie is here. I hugged Aunt Pei tightly, tears streaming down my face. She told me that the bastard didn't succeed. Just as he was about to assault me, a patrolling neighborhood watch team drove by. They spotted the electric bike the scoundrel had abandoned by the roadside and noticed unusual traces in the greenery along the path. The watch team got out to investigate, and the man who intended to assault me jumped into the river and fled. I felt incredibly lucky to have escaped such a close call. Clutching Aunt Pei's hand, I said, "Auntie, I don't want anyone to know about this, not even Orion Pei." Aunt Pei agreed to let me focus on recovering from my illness. I suffered multiple soft tissue injuries and had a minor concussion from being punched by that violent man. I stayed in the hospital for half a month. During those 2 weeks, I didn't contact Orion Pei even once. Orion Pei never came to see me either. My phone was returned to me by Aunt Pei, who got it from Orion Pei's car. In the chat history between Orion Pei and me, there was a message he sent me on the night of the incident. "Have you made up your mind? Let me know when you're ready, and I'll come pick you up right away." I checked the timestamp of the message. It was exactly when that stranger was assaulting me. While I was being assaulted, all Orion Pei could think about was making me apologize to Lyra Jiang. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. I laughed until tears streamed down my face, laughed until my voice was hoarse. "Orion Pei, I won't like you anymore, never." On the day we returned to school for classes, I ran into Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang outside the classroom. The two walked over side by side, chatting and laughing. Lyra Jiang was no longer wearing those cheap, faded clothes from before. Instead, she was dressed in expensive clothing. And she and Orion Pei were even wearing the same brand of shoes. Needless to say, they were bought for Lyra Jiang by Orion Pei. When they saw me, the smiles on their faces faded. Orion Pei distanced himself from Lyra Jiang, quickly approached me, and snorted coldly, finally decided to come back. "Did you think hiding for half a month would let you off the hook for apologizing? Let me tell you, the matter from last time isn't over. If you don't apologize to Lyra, I won't forgive you." Did he think I would still care about whether he forgives me or not? Lyra Jiang trotted over and said, "Brother Orion, forget it. I won't dwell on what happened last time. You don't have to force your sister to apologize. This is the attitude one should have when they've done something wrong. Let me tell you, Myra, just because I dote on you doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. People must pay the price for their mistakes." Ignoring Orion Pei, I turned and walked into the classroom. Orion Pei was right. People must always pay the price for their mistakes. I have already paid a heavy price for liking Orion Pei, so I will never like him again. Seeing me ignore him and walk into the classroom without a word, Orion Pei followed me in a fit of anger. "Are you still being stubborn, Myra? This is your last chance. Apologize now, and we can still sit together. Otherwise, you'll have to move to the back and sit alone." Lyra Jiang quickly added, "I'll move away. After all, the spot next to you has always been your sister's." I stared at the things that didn't belong to me, placed in what was supposed to be my spot. Are Lyra Jiang and Orion Pei already sitting together? Then where are my things? Finally, I spotted my book in the last position. Without any expression, I sat down and opened it. Whatever Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang were saying, I didn't hear it, nor did I want to spare a moment to listen. From now on, I will focus on studying. My mind is set only on reading. At lunchtime, Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang left together. As I left, I glanced at the seat where I had been sitting. He was waiting for me to make the first move. With my head down, I stared blankly at the book in front of me when Lyra Jiang quickly approached. "Sis, let's go eat together." I looked coldly at Lyra Jiang, catching the mockery in her eyes. Without a word, I stood up and walked out, while Orion Pei, relieved, followed behind me with Lyra Jiang. They kept talking, saying that Orion Pei bought clothes and toys for Jiang Miao Miao, and that they had gone to a nearby city to see the ocean in the past half-month. Lyra Jiang is showing off to me how good Orion Pei is to her. Is that really necessary? Compared to buying clothes and playing with her, abandoning me on that pitch-black rainy night was the most hurtful thing, wasn't it? I quickened my pace and rushed into the cafeteria, grabbed a meal, and sat down to wolf it down. Just as I was about to finish eating, Lyra Jiang and Orion Pei walked over with their trays and sat down beside me. Orion Pei picked up his chopsticks and tried to place a piece of my favorite golden fried chicken cutlet onto my plate, but I abruptly picked up my plate and stood to leave, leaving his hand holding the golden chicken cutlet frozen in mid-air. Watching me put down the tray and leave, Orion Pei let out a mocking laugh. Everyone knew about the Cold War between Orion Pei and me, just as they knew how close Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang had become. On my way back to the classroom, I overheard people deliberately gossiping in front of me, saying I had lost to Lyra Jiang. They said childhood friends could never compare to a new arrival. They said that while I was away, Orion Pei bought many gifts for Lyra Jiang and that Orion Pei took Lyra Jiang home every day. They said Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang are in a relationship. My closest friend, Qianqian, couldn't help but ask me, Myra Shah, do you know what's going on between Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang? I smiled and shook my head. No idea, you really don't know. Qianqian probed cautiously. Did you have a fight with Orion Pei? Why haven't you been to school for half a month? What happened? Qianqian was the first person to ask me. My hands trembled slightly as her questions brought back memories of that pitch-black night with the torrential rain. I recalled the heavy panting of that faceless man, my fingernails digging into my palms. I forced myself to stay calm, not to scream, not to lose composure. Qianqian was still asking. They say you broke up with Orion Pei because of Lyra Jiang. Is that true? It's true, I nodded. How could you just accept it? If it were me, I'd definitely tear that homewrecker Lyra Jiang apart. Footsteps suddenly echoed in the classroom. Orion Pei had appeared before Qianqian and me at some point. Beside him followed Lyra Jiang, on the verge of tears. I'm not the other woman, I didn't. Lyra's sobbing was irritating to hear. Orion Pei glared at me coldly. I thought you had repented, but I never expected you to be so despicable behind my back. What good does it do you to ruin Lyra's reputation like this? Orion Pei was interrogating me, and his furious questioning scared Qianqian away. I lowered my head, took out a roll of paper, and started writing the answers with a pen. I didn't hear what Orion Pei said, I just found it a bit noisy. How strange, what does his business with Lyra Jiang have to do with me? I clearly didn't say or do anything. So why did he come to confront me in such anger? Protecting someone doesn't require a reason. So Orion Pei is now wholeheartedly defending Lyra Jiang, targeting me without any justification. I wasn't upset. I sat calmly in the classroom, focused solely on studying for the entire day. When school ended and I walked out of the school gate, I saw Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang. He proactively opened the car door and let Lyra Jiang get into the Pei family's car that had come to pick them up. Orion Pei glanced back at me. In the past, I always rode to school in the same car as Orion Pei. We were never separated. Orion Pei was probably waiting for me to take the initiative and walk over to his family's car, but how could I possibly repeat the same mistake after being kicked out just once? The taste of being bullied once was more than enough. I will never put myself in danger again. Without looking at Orion Pei, I turned and walked in the opposite direction. The first thing I did after being discharged from the hospital was hire a driver, so I wouldn't have to squeeze into the same car with Orion Pei anymore, and I won't disturb him and Lyra Jiang anymore. Orion Pei must be very happy, right? The next day I went to school and didn't see Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang. During the break when handing in homework, the class monitor specifically came to find me. Myra Shah, could you give Orion Pei a call? What for? I responded indifferently. He didn't come to school, didn't ask for leave, and didn't hand in his homework. I called him but he didn't answer. You're closest to him, could you ask him for me? I distantly refused. Sorry, class monitor, I don't have that obligation. The class monitor looked at me in surprise. No one knew better than the monitor how closely I used to keep an eye on Orion Pei. I was always the first to know about Orion Pei's matters. I had been pushing Orion Pei to study, and our shared goal was to get into the best university. The class monitor scratched his head. Aren't you worried his grades might drop? I didn't respond and kept my head down, working on the test paper. The atmosphere was silent until someone broke it. Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang went to the countryside. Lyra Jiang's grandmother is sick, and she was too worried not to visit her. So Orion Pei accompanied her to the countryside. Lyra Jiang's social media feed kept updating non-stop. Orion Pei used his money and influence to secure the best hospital and doctors for her grandmother. The medical expenses for Lyra Jiang's grandmother were all covered by Orion Pei. While Lyra Jiang's grandmother was undergoing surgery, Lyra Jiang was so worried that she cried outside the operating room, and Orion Pei held her hand to comfort her. I've heard these stories so many times that my ears are practically calloused. To avoid the noise, I've made it a habit to wear earplugs while studying. 5 days later, Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang returned. Lyra Jiang brought local specialties from the countryside, one for each person. She also gave me one. I kept my head down, working on my test papers, showing no reaction to the local specialty placed in front of me or to her pitiful words. Orion Pei rushed over to me, shouting angrily and shaking my desk. Only then did I raise my head and look at them blankly. When I looked up, Orion Pei noticed the earplugs in my ears. His face turned slightly pale. But I just glanced at them and lowered my head again to continue my homework. The next day was the monthly exam, and Orion Pei, who had always been neck and neck with me for first or second place, dropped beyond the top 50. Unsurprisingly, Lyra Jiang was at the bottom of the rankings. When the results came out, the teacher specifically called Orion Pei in for a talk. I don't know what Orion Pei said to the teacher, but then the teacher called me over. Myra Shah, you and Orion Pei are the most promising students in our class. Now that Orion Pei's grades have dropped so much, I think it's your duty to help him. Move back and sit with him. I refused the teacher. Everyone is responsible for their own life. Orion Pei and I aren't that close now, and I have no obligation to help him. Besides, I feel perfectly fine sitting in the back. I won't move back. Back in the classroom, I noticed Orion Pei staring intently at the classroom door. Seeing me appear, there seemed to be a glimmer of expectation in his eyes, but I walked past him without even a glance and took a seat at the back, pulling out my workbook to continue solving problems. Orion Pei never imagined things would turn out this way between him and Myra Shah one day. He simply couldn't stand by and watch Myra Shah bully Lyra Jiang and wanted to steer Myra Shah back on the right path. That night, he just wanted to scare Myra Shah a little. Myra Shah was so timid, leaving her on such a dark road would surely make her panic and call for help. All she had to do was offer a casual apology, and the matter would be over. But he waited for a long time and never received Myra Shah's apology. Unable to help himself, he gave Myra Shah an out by messaging her first, but she still didn't reply. Myra Shah has an extraordinary temper, and then she completely cut off contact with him, disappearing for half a month like this. During these half a month, Orion Pei has been absent-minded, constantly restraining himself from taking the initiative to call or message Myra Shah. Myra Shah's spoiled princess attitude must be changed. Bullying someone like Lyra Jiang, who has no power or influence, naturally won't lead to any consequences. But if it were someone of status, Myra Shah would definitely suffer serious repercussions. He did it for Myra Shah's own good, to help her change her ways. With this thought in mind, Orion Pei endured day after day. To provoke Myra Shah and make her come back on her own, he even let Lyra Jiang take over Myra Shah's position. Orion Pei knew very well that Myra Shah had feelings for him and that she always put him first. If Myra Shah found out that Lyra Jiang had taken her seat, she would definitely lose control and come back to settle the score with Lyra Jiang. When the time comes, he would give Myra Shah a way out, and they would reconcile. Orion Pei waited expectantly for Myra Shah to come back with a vengeance. And finally, Myra Shah was willing to return. Myra Shah looked very haggard, pale and thin. She must have had a hard time during this period. Orion Pei felt very upset inside, waiting for Myra Shah to take the initiative and back down. But Myra Shah said nothing and went to the very back. Myra Shah's indifference and disregard infuriated Orion Pei, making him feel like a clown for all his expectations these past days. He was furious that Myra Shah dared to challenge him, and he intended to teach her a lesson to temper her attitude. But Myra Shah didn't care that he was having meals with Lyra Jiang. She didn't care that he picked up and dropped off Lyra Jiang to school. She found her own driver and went her separate way. Orion Pei felt extremely bitter inside. He didn't think he had done anything wrong. All of this was Myra Shah's fault. She dared to challenge him because she was certain he couldn't let her go. They were engaged. And Myra Shah must have used this to control him. Orion Pei was very unwilling. He deliberately skipped school, knowing Myra Shah was most concerned about his truancy. They had promised to attend the best school together. He intentionally ignored the class monitor's calls, waiting for Myra Shah to call him instead. If Myra Shah called for him, he would rush back immediately. But Myra Shah didn't call him. She didn't care what he was doing. She didn't care that he accompanied Lyra Jiang back to her hometown to visit her sick grandmother. He deliberately had Lyra Jiang post those moments on social media, intentionally letting all of this reach Myra Shah's ears. He purposely scored very low on the monthly exam, waiting for Myra Shah to anxiously come and push him to improve. But Myra Shah remained indifferent, her ears plugged with earbuds as she lowered her head to do her homework. Everything around her had nothing to do with her. She didn't care about anyone, nor did she care about him. A surge of panic rose in Orion Pei's heart. When the teacher called him for a talk, he deliberately mentioned Myra Shah, hoping the teacher would intervene and have her switch back to her original seat. After so many days of Cold War, this was the best way out. Myra Shah is so smart, she must understand what he means. She will surely find a way to save face. Unfortunately, Myra Shah disappointed Orion Pei once again. The situation unfolding this way was beyond Orion Pei's expectations. The sudden coldness from Myra Shah, who had always put him first and had eyes only for him, left Orion Pei feeling deeply unsettled. He began to reflect, had he gone too far? Lately, he had been coming and going with Lyra Jiang every day, and rumors were spreading throughout the school that he and Lyra Jiang were together. Was this the reason Myra Shah had become so disheartened and refused to back down? Orion Pei felt he needed to show his stance first. His first gesture of reconciliation was to ask Lyra Jiang to move out, freeing up Myra Shah's seat. Lyra Jiang agreed readily. The seat next to you was originally my sister's. It's only right that I move when she returns. But could I wait until after school to help? Orion Pei had no reason to refuse Lyra Jiang. He didn't expect another accident to happen. During this time, I've grown accustomed to staying away from Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang. Without paying attention to these two individuals, I immersed myself completely in studying, and time passed quickly. I've also been living quite comfortably. I just didn't expect Lyra Jiang to take the initiative to come to me. Speaking of which, during this period when she and Orion Pei were always together, Lyra Jiang has been much more well-behaved. She never took the initiative to approach me nor falsely accused me as she did before. I thought this peace would last until the end of the college entrance exams. Lyra Jiang stopped me in the break room while I was making tea during my lunch break. Myra Shah, we need to talk. I ignored Jiang Miao Miao as if she were air, but Lyra Jiang kept chattering. You really surprised me this time. So you've learned the art of playing hard to get. This time, I admit you won because you could hold back. You turned the tables. I didn't say a word, finished filling the water, and was about to leave when Lyra Jiang swiftly blocked my path. Don't go. Don't you want to know why that incident happened that night? I raised my eyes to look at Lyra Jiang, her face wearing a venomous smile. I never expected you to be so lucky. I thought you were surely dead. She lowered her voice, sounding like a demon. That man was arranged by me and my mom, originally meant to send you to hell. Who knew you'd be so lucky to escape? Oh, and your phone, I secretly threw it in the car. Orion Pei had no idea you didn't have it. I stared at Lyra Jiang in disbelief. I had always thought the man that night was just a demon who happened to pass by. I never imagined it was the handiwork of Lyra Jiang and her mother. A sinister smile spread across Lyra Jiang's face. Did you think rejecting us would make you the winner? Dream on, Myra Shah. Your mother lost to mine, and you'll never beat me either. I will take everything that belongs to you, leaving you with nothing. Just like your mother, reduced to a handful of ashes. I raised my hand and slapped Lyra Jiang across the face. She didn't dodge but instead snatched the cup from my hand and poured the water over her own hand. She let out a dramatic scream. Ah, it hurts so much. Once again, Lyra Jiang framed me. Clutching her supposedly scalded hand, she pitifully accused me of hitting her and pouring boiling water on her. The tragic sight of Lyra Jiang shocked everyone, especially when Orion Pei rushed in and, upon seeing her in that state, started yelling at me furiously. He held the sobbing Lyra Jiang, who was crying her heart out, and pushed me to the ground. The incident blew up, and someone posted a video of it online. My past of bullying Lyra Jiang was dug up. And I was severely criticized. The teacher and school administrators called me in for a talk, and the police also came to the school to investigate. The situation escalated. And rumors started spreading outside that I would face disciplinary action for bullying Lyra Jiang. There were even claims that I would be expelled from school, and that I had already been arrested and questioned by the police. Everyone believed my future was completely ruined. At the same time, many videos attacking me appeared online. They came quickly but disappeared just as fast. The police did come to the school, and Aunt Pei and Uncle Pei also came to the school. I did undergo police questioning, and no one except me knows what the police asked me. The online attack videos and comments targeting me were quickly taken down, and the next day I came to school for class as if nothing had happened. Everyone was secretly sizing me up, saying the only reason I was fine was because I had powerful connections and had paid to settle everything. Faced with the gossip, I chose to remain silent and continued burying myself in studying and doing practice problems. Orion Pei skipped school for a week, reportedly accompanying Jiang Miao to the hospital. Worried that Lyra Jiang's burns might leave scars, Orion Pei took her to the best hospital for treatment. It said that a considerable amount of money was spent. All of this was told to me by Qianqian, who is quite close to me. Qianqian didn't believe I would harm Lyra Jiang. She once asked me, "She framed you, didn't she?" She kept saying you treated her that way out of jealousy over her closeness with Orion Pei. Others might not know, but I see it clearly. You never intended to have any interaction with Orion Pei. Am I right? I just smiled, neither confirming nor denying. Orion Pei accompanied Jiang Miao back to school to collect her exam admission ticket. Orion Pei carefully tended to Lyra Jiang, whose hand was injured. The two entered the classroom like conjoined twins. After receiving the exam admission tickets and listening to the teacher's instructions, we were dismissed. I packed my things and left, while Orion Pei remained seated, turning his head to watch me. His gaze held disappointment. Seeing me stand up and walk out, he immediately rose to follow. As if trying to intercept me, I slipped out through the back door. Stepping out of the classroom, I heard Lyra Jiang's exclamation from inside. I didn't look back, not even pausing as I strode away. The college entrance exam proceeded as scheduled, with Lyra Jiang, Orion Pei, and me all assigned to the same examination hall. However, I arrived at the exam hall very early and left quickly after finishing the test. I never had any interaction with them. The 3-day college entrance exam ended quickly, and it was time for everyone to relax. As if to spite me, Orion Pei bought a plane ticket on the day the exam ended and accompanied Lyra Jiang to Japan. It is said that Lyra Jiang really liked Japan, but because she had no money, she had never been there, so Orion Pei wanted to accompany her to fulfill this wish. They spent half a month traveling in Japan, during which Qianqian and Orion Pei's friends kept sending me messages non-stop. Qianqian was furiously cursing Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang as a scumbag and a cheap woman, angry that Orion Pei was sacrificing so much for Lyra Jiang. Meanwhile, Orion Pei's friends kept warning me. Orion is extremely upset because of your actions. Myra Shah, you really shouldn't keep provoking him like this. Do you really want to ruin all these years of relationship between you two? Myra Shah, it's not scary to humble yourself before someone you love, as long as you take the initiative to apologize. Orion will definitely forgive you. If you don't make a move soon, Orion will really end up with Lyra Jiang. You know Lyra Jiang isn't bad looking, she has what it takes to be with Orion. I paid no attention to these messages, focusing solely on my own affairs. Soon it was time to check the college entrance exam scores. Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang flew back from Japan on the very day the results were released. It is said that both of them did well in the exam, but I couldn't check my score. After entering my admission ticket number, I found that my score was blocked. Seeing my score blocked completely put my mind at ease. I can attend the university I've been dreaming of. Qianqian sent me a message asking how I did in the exam. You even asked me which schools I'm planning to apply to. Everyone knows Orion Pei and I are going to the same university. Qianqian reminded me gently, Myra Shah, with Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang already like this, don't let love cloud your judgment and get entangled with him endlessly. Don't worry, nothing like that will happen. Are you sure? I heard from Orion Pei's friend that he's absolutely certain you'll still apply to the same university as him. Oh, and Lyra Jiang also applied to the same school as Orion Pei. Not bad, I replied indifferently. Could you not tell me about Orion Pei's matters in the future? I don't want to hear about them. Qianqian didn't mention Orion Pei's affairs again, and my ears were finally at peace. Little did I expect that Orion Pei's friend would call me, Myra Shi. You must come to the club gathering tonight. Orion Pei's friend said that Orion Pei had generously booked the entire club to treat all the classmates to a wild celebration. She specifically reminded me, Myra Shi, this is your last chance. Seize tonight's opportunity, and you and Orion can start over. By the way, Orion brought you a gift from Japan. I hung up the phone without saying a word. Orion Pei's friend called again, but I refused to answer. I had no time to listen to Orion Pei's friend's nonsense. I had more important things to do. In the evening, Orion Pei's friend sent me another message. When I received the message from Orion Pei's friend, I was just taking out the childhood betrothal bracelet that Aunt Pei had given my mother from the safe. He sent a long, elaborate message. Myra Shi, you must come tonight. Orion has gone all out, booking the entire club and preparing fireworks. Let me remind you, you haven't forgotten your agreement with Orion, have you? This is your last chance. If you come tonight, you and Orion will reconcile, and you'll even get to enjoy a romantic fireworks proposal. If you don't show up, the opportunity won't wait for you. Orion Pei did indeed make a promise with me. We would attend the same university and officially start our relationship after the college entrance exams. He was supposed to set off a romantic firework display to mark our official togetherness, but that was in the past. The Orion Pei of now has long since broken his promise, and I no longer hold any expectations for him. Ignoring Orion Pei's friend's lengthy lecture, I picked up the box containing the jade bracelet and went to Orion Pei's house. Hearing my explanation for calling off the engagement, Aunt Pei and Uncle Pei were both shocked. Myra Shi, this is no joking matter. You can't make such a decision out of momentary anger. Uncle, Auntie, I'm not acting out of anger. This is a decision I've made after careful consideration. I placed the bracelet on the coffee table at Orion Pei's house. Aunt Pei still tried to persuade me. If it's because of that Lyra Jiang, don't worry. I would never allow the daughter of a mistress to be with Orion. It has nothing to do with Lyra Jiang. I just don't like Orion Pei anymore, that's all. As I put down the bracelet and left Aunt Jiang's house with my own jade pendant, Qianqian sent me a message. Orion Pei went too far. He actually set off fireworks for Lyra Jiang. The sky was ablaze with brilliant fireworks, dazzling and magnificent. I was staring blankly at the fireworks video on the screen when an unfamiliar call came through to my phone. Just a brief message. Come to the police station immediately if you're free. The private club was bustling with excitement. Amid the deafening sounds of drinking, chatting, finger-guessing games, and singing, Orion Pei sat absent-mindedly on the sofa, constantly glancing toward the entrance. The party had been going on for 2 hours, and Myra Shi still hadn't shown up. Orion Pei's disappointment grew stronger, and his anger surged fiercer. He had clearly asked his friend to inform Myra Shi, so why was she still playing hard to get? What exactly was she trying to imply? The club gathering was originally proposed by Myra Shi, who said she wanted to announce her happiness with Orion Pei to the world after the college entrance exams. They planned to be together under the witness and blessings of all their classmates. How could he confess if she didn't show up? The fireworks display he prepared would be in vain, and after waiting for a long time, Myra Shi still hadn't appeared. Orion Pei couldn't take it anymore and stood up. If she wouldn't come, then she shouldn't blame him. It was Myra Shi who broke the agreement herself. If she wanted to make a scene, let her go all the way. Orion Pei stood up and said, I prepared fireworks for Lyra's recovery. Let's all go watch the fireworks. Brilliant fireworks exploded in the sky, leaving Lyra Jiang moved to tears. Orion Pei stood beside Lyra Jiang, his gaze empty as he watched the fireworks in the sky. The fleeting I love you stung his eyes. He turned and strode back into the private room. Drink after drink was poured, the young men and women reveled wildly, and soon everyone was sprawled out in disarray. Lyra Jiang directed the waiter to arrange a designated driver to take her classmates home. In the end, Only Jiang Miao Miao and Orion Pei remained in the private room. Orion Pei lay motionless on the sofa with his eyes closed. While a faint sneer flashed in Lyra Jiang's eyes, she took out a small bottle from her bag and sprayed it a few times at the unconscious Orion Pei. After a short while, Orion Pei, who was in a deep sleep, suddenly began to twist his body uneasily. Lyra Jiang leaned in with a smile on her face. Orion, wake up. Orion Pei opened his eyes, which were unnaturally bloodshot, and murmured as he looked at Lyra Jiang, Myra She, you're here, it's me, Orion, it's me. Orion Pei hugged Lyra Jiang tightly. I missed you so much, Myra She, I missed you to death. Lyra Jiang looked up and kissed Orion Pei's lips. And the two quickly embraced. Just as Orion Pei and Lyra Jiang were undressing and about to get intimate, the private room door was kicked open from the outside. The infatuated Orion Pei showed no reaction, still passionately kissing Lyra Jiang. Meanwhile, the fully conscious Lyra Jiang immediately turned her gaze toward the door upon hearing the noise. What met her eyes was the fiery glare of Aunt Pei. Witnessing this scene in the private room, Aunt Pei could no longer contain her rage. Bitch. You're asking for death. Aunt Pei spat out the words through gritted teeth before ordering the bodyguards, take the young master to the hospital immediately. Two bodyguards grabbed the emotionally out-of-control Orion Pei, one on each side, and swiftly escorted him out of the private room. The completely naked Lyra Jiang tried to put on her clothes, but the other bodyguards had already taken them away before she could. Aunt Pei wore a cold smile on her face. Dare to scheme against my son, just you wait. She motioned to the bodyguard with a nod, and the bodyguard stepped forward to open Lyra Jiang's bag. From inside, he took out a small bottle and sprayed its contents toward Lyra Jiang. No, Lyra Jiang was utterly terrified, but the bodyguard completely ignored her, forcibly holding Lyra Jiang's face and spraying the entire contents of a bottle at her before finally releasing her. A group of people leisurely retreated from the scene. Lyra Jiang frantically tried to call for help, but unfortunately, her phone was nowhere to be found. Naked and panicked, she hurriedly found some clothes to put on and rushed outside. Stumbling out of the club, completely disoriented, Lyra Jiang began to remove her clothes one piece at a time. Soon, she was completely naked. But that wasn't all. She desperately clung to a passing man, begging for intimacy. The shocked man, like any normal person would, quickly pushed Lyra Jiang away in alarm. Finally, Lyra Jiang hugged an old and ugly man begging on the street. The man looked at Lyra Jiang's innocent face and, without refusing, embraced her. Then they began their performance right there on the main road. Passers-by were shocked. Some started live streams, while others called the police. When the police arrived, Lyra Jiang was still desperately clinging to the man, refusing to let go. With blood dripping beneath her, Lyra Jiang's incident caused a huge uproar, shaking the entire internet. Meanwhile, I had already grabbed my luggage and boarded a plane to Tibet. The plane landed in Lhasa, and I went to the hotel to rest for a few hours. When I woke up and turned on my phone, I saw the images and text Qianqian had sent. Oh my god, this is too horrifying. Qianqian exaggeratedly expressed her disbelief. She actually carried that kind of thing with her, apparently. It was some kind of aphrodisiac. Maybe she had too much to drink and mistook it for perfume. And then that terrifying incident happened right there on the street, in front of so many people. She got involved with a beggar, and it was live-streamed. My god, this is just unbelievable. By the way, did you know, her parents haven't shown up at all? Even after such a major incident involving their own daughter, they've been completely absent from start to finish. I just stared at Qianqian's message without saying a word. Lyra Jiang's mother and my own heartless father are currently in no position to spare any attention for Lyra Jiang. After all, I already knew when I left that Lyra Jiang's home-wrecking mother and my unfaithful biological father had been invited by the police for a little chat. My dad was invited for tea because he engaged in fraud and tax evasion. As for Lyra Jiang's mother, going for tea was a malicious act to harm me. I must actually thank Lyra Jiang for this. If she hadn't been so desperate as to slander me in the break room and say those things to me, I would never have realized that the night I was nearly raped was orchestrated by Lyra Jiang and her mother. Lyra Jiang always thought I was a defeated opponent who wouldn't fight back. Little did she know, I had already learned my lesson and grown wiser from the experience. I always carry a voice recorder with me, and as soon as Lyra Jiang gets close, I start recording. Originally, it was just to protect myself from being framed by Lyra Jiang, but I never expected to capture such crucial evidence. The police acted swiftly, and based on the recording I provided, they quickly apprehended the man who threatened me. Lyra Jiang's mother was naturally implicated as well, and they will now face legal consequences. When Orion Pei woke up in the hospital, he was completely dazed, especially when he saw the concerned looks in his parents' eyes in the hospital room. Mom, Dad, why are you here? You still have the nerve to ask. If it weren't for Myra's reminder, you would have fallen for that shameless woman's trap. What do you mean? Orion Pei pressed, as he seemed to have seen Myra last night. Myra had kissed him, and he remembered that he had. Aunt Pei's face turned ashen. That shameless woman Jiang Miao Miao used extreme measures on you, and I caught her in the act. You were sent to the hospital, and now she's learned her lesson, after listening to Aunt Pei. Orion Pei looked incredulous. How is that possible? She always said she saw me as a brother. Haha, you actually believe what that mistress's pet says. She's just trying to deceive you, deliberately making you let your guard down. Does Myra know? Why hasn't she come to see me? Aunt Pei and Uncle Pei exchanged glances. You and Myra have no relationship whatsoever. Why should she care about you? Why would she come to see you? Wasn't she my childhood betrothal? So you still remember your relationship with Myra? I thought you'd forgotten everything after being enchanted by that woman. Lyra Jiang, I'm not infatuated with Lyra Jiang. I just wanted to teach Myra a lesson. Myra is too stubborn. And that's not good. She'll suffer for it. You're utterly incorrigible. Is this how you teach someone a lesson? Do you have any idea what Myra has been through? Do you know what that vicious mistress and her daughter did to Myra? You bastard. Aunt Pei was so furious she slapped Orion Pei. Myra won't have anything to do with you anymore. She'll never be with you again. How is this possible? Orion Pei refused to believe it, but Aunt Pei sneered. Myra already gave up on you when you abandoned her for Lyra Jiang and nearly let her get raped. Upon hearing Aunt Pei's words, Orion Pei was thunderstruck. Rape? When did this happen? What kind of truth is this? How could I not know? Aunt Pei looked at Orion Pei and sighed. It's all in the past. What can you do now that you know? You've already hurt Myra, and she won't look back. Orion Pei didn't know how he left the hospital. After learning about the harm Myra had suffered, he slapped himself several times in the face. He was desperate to find Myra to apologize and admit his mistakes, but when he sent her a message, he realized he had been blocked. He rushed desperately to Myra's house, only to find the door tightly shut. The housekeeper who had just returned from grocery shopping told him that Myra had gone on a trip. The return date was uncertain. I changed my phone number and didn't add any classmates except Qianqian. After returning from my trip to Tibet, I went straight to school to register. On the first day of school, Qianqian sent me a video. Orion Pei was standing at the entrance of the university we had once promised to attend together. Holding a bouquet of roses, Qianqian said he stood there from morning till night and was finally picked up by the Pei family's driver. Qianqian said he deserved it for treating me so badly because of Lyra Jiang. Qianqian told me not to look back. She said Orion Pei isn't worth me turning around for. Of course I won't look back, otherwise I wouldn't have sold my hometown house and changed all my contact details. There's neither love nor hate between Orion Pei and me. From the day he abandoned me, we were destined to become strangers. 3 months later, Orion Pei still managed to find the university I was attending. He stopped me. Myra, I'm sorry. I looked at him indifferently, curling one corner of my lips. If apologies were enough, what would we need the police for? The harm Orion Pei had caused me was already done. If not for my luck in being rescued, I can't imagine what I would become, a young girl in the prime of her life experiencing such a tragic event. I don't think I would have the heart to study, and I certainly wouldn't have been able to get into my dream university. Becoming mentally ill might have been my only way out, and how dare Orion Pei, the one who started it all, demand my forgiveness? He was one of the accomplices back then. I will never forgive him for the harm he's done to me in this lifetime. Not even in death will I forgive him.